So what we're going to look at now is the average daily balance, or what we might call the ADB. Now, the way this works, there's 3 steps. The first one is we're going to sum balance times days. And so what will happen, we'll have a balance, say for 3 days in a row. And it's always going to be usually consecutive days. For 3 days in a row, we have a balance of $100. So what we'll do is we'll take $100 times 3 days, and we get 300. And that's again, if for say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, our bank account has $100 in it, each of those days. So we'll take the $100 times the number of days to get 300. And we're going to do this for every balance in our credit card account. And then we're going to sum all of those balance times days. The second step is we'll sum the days. And then the third step, we'll divide the sums. And specifically, the sum from step 1 will divide by the sum in step 2. So, for example, let's say we have something like this. What I'll do, I'll use the example from page 647 in the text. I'll go over it. So we have from April 10 to 11, each of those days, the balance is $300. No, 315. Now, this is April 10, April 11. So that's for 2 days. So if we take the balance times days, we get 630. Squeeze that in there. Then something happens on the 12th. And you want to be careful with the examples in the text here. They'll say something happens, like something's paid off, for example. That means we're changing the balance. So if we charge something, if we pay something off, we've changed the balance. So next, on the 12th, something changes. And that change is going to remain with no other changes up to the 14th. And so what happens is it looks like we make a purchase of $28. So we're going to add $28 to this balance, and we'll get 343. Now this is going to be for the 12th, 13th, and 14th, or 3 days. So now we take our 343, leaving off the symbols just because I'm running out of space. We'll get 1029. So what happened is on the 12th, we made a purchase of $28, so that went onto our credit card. And then we didn't do anything else for the rest of the 12th or the 13th or the 14th. So 12, 13, 14, those 3 days, we just made that change on the 12th. So for the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th, the total is going to be 343. So we take that times the 3 days, and that gives us that number. Now, then there's another change. On the 15th, we have a deduction. Let's say we pay off $50 of this bill. So we'll take our 343 minus 50, and that'll give us 293. And the way you can think of this, if it helps, like let's say this happens like at midnight of the 15th. So the entire day of the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21, 22, 23, it's part of this. We include the entire April 15th. So how many days was that? Well, that's 9 days. We made this payment on the 15th, and things stayed, nothing else changed all the way through the 23rd. On the 24th is when things are going to change. But we'll take our 293 times 9, and that's going to give us 2637. And then lastly, on the 24th, there's a change. And this will go all the way to May 9. Now, what's important with these kinds of questions, you want to be careful. They don't include the May 10th in this case. So May 10th is when something's going to change, is going to be either, that's the end of the pay period, but we won't include the 10th. But we are going to include the 9th. And we made another purchase of $123. So that means we put that on our credit card. That's adding another purchase, $123, and that comes out to $416. And that's a period of 16 days. So 416 times 16 is 66.56. So each of these numbers, and I'll try to rewrite this one so it's a little closer in. We got 315 times 2. That's going to be 630. Each of these numbers is the balance times the days, balance times days, balance times days, balance times the number of days at that balance. And this is the sum we want for step 1. We want to add up these results. And what we're going to get is $10,952. This is our step number 1. We come up with that sum. Now, step 2 is we add up the total number of days. So we had a balance of 315 for 2 days. I'll write this a little lower. Then a balance of, it was 343 for 3 days. Then a balance of 9. Oh, sorry, no, a balance of 293 for 9 days. And then a balance of $416 for 16 days. If we add up the total number of days, it's going to come out to 30. And this is what we want for step number 2. So if you go back to step number 1, you look for the days and those the number of days. Just add the 2, the 3, the 9, the 16. I'll give you the 30 days total, and that's number 2. For step number 3, we'll take the sum from step 1, which was 10,952, and divide by, it's not going to be a dollar amount, it's the number of days. And this will give us the average balance per day, or the average daily balance, or the ADB. And when we do that division, rounding to the nearest cent, we get $365.07. So what do we do with that? Well, the idea is this. If we miss a payment on our credit card, they need to assess a penalty based on how much we're borrowing. The problem is what we're borrowing is changing all the time. Or in this case, it changed maybe 4 times is what it did, but it still changed. So what should they do? Should they charge us when we have a debt of $416 and base a penalty fee on that? Should they charge us when our debt was only $293? What should we do? So what they do is instead they come up with this average daily balance, and they use this to base the penalty on. So on average, this was the balance we had in the account per day on average. So this is what they use to assess the penalty. So the penalty, they actually use this formula, our simple interest formula. So now we're calculating a penalty. And it's going to be based on not necessarily a principal, but the ADB. And then this is the interest rate on the account. Make sure you can see that. And as a default in this section, they're going to set the time period to 1. So this is, again, the interest rate for the account. They're going to set this to 1. We'll use the ADB for P, and the penalty, well, that's what we're calculating. Now, in the example that we have here, the account that we were working with, the interest rate was 1.5%. So we need to convert that to a pure decimal. So that means you take your 1.5, move that 2 spaces to the left. That's how you turn a percent into a pure decimal. In other words, a decimal number that's not a percent anymore, and it's 0.015. So that's our R. Now, here, let me adjust this a little bit. For our P, that's our ADB, average daily balance. That was about $365.07. And we let our T, again, this is a convention, to be 1. So the penalty we're going to pay, it's PRT, or 365.07 times, and let's see, our R is 0.015 times 1. And when we round that off to the nearest cent, we get 5.48. So that's how you use average daily balance. That's how you calculate it, how you use it in the problems in this section. So if you have any questions in here, let me, hopefully that get the blazing sun there is not in the way. All right, $5.48. If you have any questions about that, let me know.